Welcome back to the Control Oversee, a gaming podcast, as it is listed on the YouTube. I am your co-host, Ike Isaacs, and of course we have Salsa Shark, the one and only, the smelliest of all the sharks.
Well, excuse me. I took a shower today. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, when was the last time you took a shower there, Chief? Before today.
I do not like this line of questioning. We will be moving on.
So, hope everybody enjoyed the last couple of episodes. We had kind of a special episode a couple days ago, where we, basically it was just an argument between me and Salsa, where we talked about what was better, Apple versus Android.
I was going to say a real special episode. It was just me trying to get your dumbass to agree there is a difference.
Yeah, I still stand by my point during the episode, but we're not going to talk about that too much because we can't have another 2-hour long conversation that gets broken up into 2 episodes.
Trust me, I don't need 2 hours to beat your ass.
Fuck you. Anyways.
You said fair. You know I can do it.
I mean, oh well. Anyways, so just as a brief recap, last time we talked about briefly the Xbox S series, which was the discless version of the Xbox X series. That's going to be released for I would say a pretty considerable payment reduction. What was it? It was like $299 for the discless, and then like $500 or $499 for the disc-in version.
Yes, but some new news has come out since then. Have you heard? Basically, the Xbox S series will not run at the same resolution as the Xbox X series.
You told me that last time. Or at least you said that you were theorizing that there would be some other reduction to it or something like that. Either you said that or you said something to that effect.
Well, yeah, I said that, and then recently they confirmed that the Xbox S series will not be able to run games that are optimized for X series. Apparently, they're only going to be able to run games that are optimized for like the Xbox One S. I don't know.
Okay.
It's some weird. Literally, all it comes down to is instead of running at 4K, 120 frames, HDR enabled ray tracing that the X series can, it will be running ray tracing 60 to 120 frames in UHD, or I think that's what it's called. It's like not quite 2K, but it's under half of the same resolution as 4K. Still a great deal. $300 for a brand new console when you can't afford the full version, which will still be able to play the same games, just at a different resolution. That's still impressive.
I mean, that's what I was going to say. It's still a pretty considerable feat, considering its competition is going to be the PS5. PS5 is probably going to have a similar limitation, but the discless version is going to be $100 more.
Plus, not to mention, PS5 announced today that due to a shortage, they will be releasing 4 million less PS5s than they had originally planned.
Really?
Yeah, it has something to do with either a microchip or something. I don't remember. I just know that their prediction is now going to be 4 million units short, which does not bode well for PS5.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's not looking real great.
Because, I mean, the last thing you want in the months leading up to your premiere is to have articles that say, oh, we couldn't do it, guys. We're just going to have to cut it short this time.
Well, and also, we actually kind of talked about this too, but this is actually something that I heard. But GameStop, of course, is running promotions for if you trade in your Xbox One, you get something for it. I heard they put out the pricing for it, and I have the Xbox One. Mine's a 1 terabyte, but I'm only getting $100 for it if I trade it in, so I will be keeping it.
I will say that's not terrible, but at
Oh,
that point you might as well just sell something else for $100 to make up the difference, and then have two Xbox.
that's what my wife told me. She was like, "Hey, you should just keep your Xbox," which this is the first time she's ever encouraged me to have to keep something. but, but most of the time she's like, "Get rid of your shit. You got too much." But
So
no,
usually the old ball and chain says it's gotta go.
right. But but she was like, this obviously makes logical sense for you to just to keep it because not that you're not getting your value out of it, but in a sense you're not getting full value out of the trade-in because you're still going to pay $200 for the new Xbox and you're not going to have a disc drive to play your old games when you
That
could
is
just keep
true.
I could just keep both and I, maybe lose out on $100, but I could work a few hours after overtime at work and make up that $100 in a day or two. So
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know,
easy.
easy peasy. But yes, but basically, so far it's not looking great for PlayStation. But in addition to things not looking great for PlayStation, we have the release dates, or at least the rumored release dates,
Oh no,
which
these are confirmed
these are
now.
confirmed.
At
Awesome.
least the Xbox One is. The PlayStation, I don't believe they've confirmed it yet. I'll Google real quick just to be sure.
But while he's Googling, right now, the confirmed date for Xbox is November 10th. Me and Salsa, we actually called this on our first podcast because we were talking about selling consoles during the pandemic. We called it, obviously, I think anybody could have called this release date for the new consoles. That's just, that's just good marketing. Release it around the holidays. All the little kiddies are going to be running around saying, "Oh, mommy, I want the new Xbox and the new PlayStation." So yes, obviously that makes sense. And Salsa, do you have the confirmed date for the PlayStation?
Ooh, this is actually interesting. The Xbox is confirmed the 10th of November. However, it is not officially revealed, according to Tech Radar, when the PlayStation 5 will. But they do say that tomorrow they're going to release the price and release date.
Interesting.
So if we just wait one more day, we'll find out.
So we'll we'll know for our next podcast, basically what's happening, what's popping. Um, so basically, I think really at this point, like we have, it's weird because originally the release dates were 7 days apart, right?
Yeah, just about 7 or 6.
So originally, what we were thinking is, okay, hey, this is going to be a 7 day apart release. Xbox is going to have a jump on it. But even if at this point, even if PlayStation released before the Xbox, the PlayStation is going to have, limited, production on that because they're going to have a limited number of consoles to sell. So I still think in this case that we're going to see the Xbox come out on top, even if the PlayStation released
I
6 months
mean,
before.
yeah, I was gonna say at this point, really all PlayStation has going for them is the fact that they have diehard fans, which Xbox does too. But that is the only, how I would say, edge that the Sony has. Their
Right.
hardware is not going to be better. Their hardware is not going to sell as many copies because right out the gates, they're 4 million units short. Plus, they've
Right.
been beaten out every time. Xbox announced the release date first. They announced the price first. They announced an amazing deal for their S series first. They're really going to have to do something special to kind of make up that gap.
Which, and not to say this in the way it's going to sound, but I don't think that they'll be able to do realistically, especially with the current constraints that we're working with. I don't think that PlayStation's is going to be able to confidently and comfortably make up the gap that has been created at this point.
Yeah, so we're coming real down to the wire.
Like really down to the wire because we're recording this on the 15th, actually the day before the podcast goes up. We like to try and record as close to the day it's released, just so that way we can provide the most up-to-date information on things that we want to talk about. So we typically do it the night before, and then I edit it and put it out around noon. But actually, it's a fun fact, tomorrow's my birthday, guys, so haha. But so basically, this is all information that's coming up as we go along. So we'll just kind of have to wait to see what we hear next. But yeah, it's not looking great, man. Not looking great for PlayStation. Which,
I mean,
in the past they've been competitive, so I hope that they're able to keep that competitive edge. Because don't get me wrong, I like PlayStation, but at least right now it's not looking great.
I'll be honest. PlayStation 4 may have beat out the Xbox One only in terms of they sold more and they had a ton of independent first-party IPs that were
Right.
I wouldn't say totally interesting. Like, I'll be honest, God of War up until the most recent one, bland, boring, standard beat 'em up game.
Exactly.
And even with some of their new IPs, like Last of Us 1, it was great, except for that's a PS3 game. PS4 got Last of Us 2. I will not get into my gripes with that game.
Honestly, I've not played it yet, so I'm obviously like, not to say that I won't play it, because I will eventually play it, but I've heard that some people really love it. Some people think it's perfectly great. Some people think it's it's garbage. But
I've watched. I haven't been able to play it because, well, one, I'm really poor. Two,
same.
I don't play PlayStation all that much. I own 2 games for my PlayStation 4, and that is The Last of Us 1 remastered and the Nathan Drake trilogy. Outside of that, I just don't have much interest in PlayStation. But
Right.
from everything I've seen from the game, it's horrible. They fucked up the pacing. It's literally, here's an entire rise and fall plot, and then after you fall, they put you into the same thing again, but from the other side.
Right.
That is horrible.
And that's one of the things I have heard is that there were just some really things that people wish they wouldn't have done with the story. So I won't go into too many spoilers. I'm sure a lot of people have already heard them, but I won't go into them too deep. But I know that a lot of people weren't happy with how they handled Joel's character, and so yeah, I won't go too in depth on that. But irregardless, I will give it a shot probably at some point, maybe when it goes on sale.
I will say, there is a great video on YouTube that I stumbled across called How to Divide a Fan Base, The Last of Us 2 by The Closer Look. It is a
I gotcha.
great video in which he perfectly describes from a logical narrative what is wrong with the game, why it's wrong, and then he actually gives a very good explanation of what he would change to keep the game as much the same as it was, while still making it an actually enjoyable, well-paced game. That's all we'll talk about it. I would recommend that video.
Yeah, I would say so too. I've not watched it yet, but I would definitely give it a shot because it sounds like it has some good points at least.
Plus, I mean, it's
But
an hour and 50 minutes, so shit, it's a great way to kill 2 hours.
that's what I was gonna say. But on the subject of new stuff and on new releases, a much awaited move from Nintendo. Honestly, this is something that when Super Mario, what was the last one? Odyssey came out.
Yeah,
I
Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
right. But Super Mario Odyssey, when that game came out, I for a very long time said that they need to go back and they need to basically re-release some of the old Mario games. The 2 that I thought that they needed to re-release for a long time was Super Mario 64 and Super Mario Sunshine. I always said, just remaster them, re-release them in HD, as you do with a lot of other popular games. I mean, they've done it with 100 Resident Evil games. And they finally did it. They did Super Mario 3D All-Stars Collection. It is going to be Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy re-released for the Switch. But there's a catch.
Yeah, there's a real big catch here, which is that after March of 2021, you will not be able to buy the Super Mario 3D All Stars collection, either physically or digitally. You will have to only buy used copies from that point on.
Exactly. And my understanding was that their intent is for a majority of their sales to be digital.
Which, I mean, the thing is, we don't know their exact intent because we can't read their minds.
Right.
But logically speaking, that's the only explanation we have. Is they want more digital sales. They know that by giving us a deadline, it's going to panic people into buying the game.
And that's something that we talked about too is uh, artificial scarcity. We were talking about that with something else the other day. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, I don't know. We were talking about that on, I think, the last podcast.
Yeah, but I don't remember what it was that we were talking about. Regardless, they're creating artificial scarcity. They're saying, we're going to basically release this from point A to point B. And actually, maybe it was when I came to visit you. You were talking about this, and I think you mentioned that this is the same thing that Disney does with like their Criterion collections of
Yeah.
movies and the vault or whatever.
Yeah, because like at any point they could have put The Little Mermaid or fucking the one bitch with the glass slippers.
Cinderella.
Yeah, that one. They could have put those movies on new DVDs or they could have put them on Netflix, but they never did. They always re-released them every few years as part of a golden Disney Vault collection or because they know they can get that money out of us by giving us artificial scarcity.
Right, and it works. Obviously, Disney is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and we eat it up like it's fucking candy. But
Shit, not me anymore. I refuse to pay them for their dumbass streaming service.
really, honestly, you don't like the Disney Plus.
Was what was that? The Mandalorian?
Yeah, so The Mandalorian.
Honestly, that is genuinely the only thing I have seen on there. I guess I did watch the Pirates of the Caribbean, but that was more because I was bored as hell and I had the login for someone's Disney Plus.
You're like, I would like to watch the Pirates of the Caribbean.
I mean, I'll be honest, never watched them before, but I would argue they're very. First off, they're amazing movies. Very simple, but still very gripping. Reminds me a lot of the Harry Potter movies.
I mean, don't even start on Harry Potter. I think the Harry Potter movies are good. Don't get me wrong, but I think they're definitely a little overrated.
Oh,
The
yeah.
first three movies, except for I will say I really like Prisoner of Azkaban. Maybe that's just because I really like Gary Oldman. I don't know. He's just Gary Oldman's just a really good actor in my opinion. I don't know,
I say
but
maybe you like Gary Oldman, but I get the feeling you like Gary Oldman minus the R.
Gay Oldman. But no, and so like I really enjoyed him. But I mean, overall, I didn't really see much with Harry Potter. But no, in Disney Plus too, and this is also a much bigger conversation. But I hate that they are doing the whole thing because I understand that we can't go to the movie theaters right now since the pandemic. But I hate that they're doing that thing where they're like releasing movies on there for
Wait,
like an
like
extra
Mulan?
charge. Yeah, like Mulan.
God, don't even get me started on Mulan. There is so much wrong that has happened since that movie came out.
You're like my life has taken a significant decline in quality
Yeah,
since that movie came out.
like I mean, I'm sure you've heard the stories. $30 surcharge to watch it, even though you pay for Disney Plus. The fact that they
Right.
filmed it in an area of China surrounded by concentration camps.
They really did.
Yeah, didn't you hear?
Look, I don't hear the same things you do, Salsa.
I, it's hard to explain. I think it was, and pardon my horrible pronunciation, the Xinjiang province, which is where they have a bunch of these concentration camps where they send these, I believe they're called the Uyghur Muslims, and
Yeah,
have them
we
like
talked about that.
re-educated. It is literally
Re-educated.
re-educated. That's code for we put a gun to the back of your head until you stop believing in God. Which I'm not even gonna make a joke about that.
I was gonna
It's pretty horrific. But no, it's at the end of the movie in the credits. They thank a bunch of people, and they include where they filmed, and it says Xinjiang, and they even thank one of China's communist propaganda, like radio networks.
Oh God.
It is, and everyone's just losing their minds about this. They're like, you made a shitty movie that catered entirely to a dictator's regime, and then have the audacity to thank the dictator and his propaganda.
When you say dictator, are you talking about Walt Disney, or are you talking about, or are you talking about the guy from China?
God, I don't even know at this point.
I mean, don't get me wrong, if the shoe fits, but
But no, let's not get too far into that. But yeah,
right.
we have a lot of hard feelings about Disney and their streaming service. Me more so than Ike over here. I have some very hard feelings about a lot of streaming services nowadays.
Yes, you do. But kind of back to what we were going over there. So basically, Nintendo artificial scarcity. They
Yeah,
are, yeah, they're attempting to essentially they're just trying to drive up sales. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think that they need to do this because everybody and their mother has been wanting a remake of these movies or these games. You know what I mean? So it's like, what's the point in going through all this, trouble to drum up artificial scarcity and trying to drum up sales when, quite frankly, you're probably going to sell a lot more if you hadn't already done, if you had done that.
exactly. And the worst part about it is I could understand saying, "Hey, we're going to stop printing new copies in March."
Right.
But the fact that they're stopping digital sales as well, they lose no money on digital sales. That is almost 100% profit. Because literally all it is we upload the game to this service, and then when you pay us, you have the right to download it. There is no like middlemen in that situation. No distributors, it's their platform.
Right.
But that's how Nintendo's been for the longest time. It's always been rumored that they love to use artificial scarcity to kind of drum up business. And
No,
I
and
think
that's. Or go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say I think a great example is Amiibos back in what was that, like 2015 when those first came out?
Was it 2015? I don't know, but I know where you're going with that. Go ahead.
Yeah, like you know how they only sent so many per month to every store, and they quickly sold out every time, and it got so bad that the Amiibo black market, which is a thing, I kid you the fuck not. The Amiibo black market, you could find like Amiibo selling for tenfold their original $15 price.
Well, and that's the thing too, is I remember my wife, she loves the oh god, what is their names?
Tom Nook.
No, give me a second here. Okay, so I remember what it was. It was Rosalina and Luma.
Oh, those bitches.
Yeah, she loves Rosalina and Luma. And I remember when I was I was trying to find a amiibo of Rosalina and Luma because she had one, but they came out with another one.
Of course.
There was none in any of the stores near us. Anytime I went online to try and order one, nowhere. So I ended up
You,
having to order from overseas, which I was lucky to find.
I see. You're honestly lucky they didn't sell you a jank ass Chinese bootleg.
Yeah, I am lucky, but
Lowe's Arena and Ruma.
Rosa, that was racist.
That
Rosarina.
that wasn't even meant to be racist. I literally just switched the first letters. I swear to God.
Sure.
I swear on my status as an ordained minister. I did not mean to.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. You know, Salsa is now an ordained minister. Jesus Christ.
For the sole purpose of making holy water. God bless.
God bless. Papa bless.
So you can't see it, but I'm physically doing the cross on my chest.
It's great. It's great salsa. But so yeah, so you know, I had to go overseas for that, and you're right. I mean, they've tried to drum up artificial scarcity before. I think the amiibos is probably the biggest crime against humanity because because it was literally like there was just like this entire market where I mean I knew people who were paying hundreds of dollars for one amiibo, and these motherfuckers only cost like what, $20?
I mean, shit, even that. I don't even think they're worth $20. I think they're like 12.
Yeah, you're probably right, but it's
I
no
got Google
surprise.
right here. I can just, hey Google, how much does an amiibo cost? All right. I'm very quickly regretting Googling this. This is not.
Yeah,
What the fuck is this? Waifu Waluigi? It's literally Waluigi, but he has the body of, I don't even, a woman in a bikini?
it's probably someone who made like a homemade one.
Ultra buff Pikachu?
So Salsa's going down a weird rabbit hole. Um, but the point is that you know this is not a new territory for Nintendo. We're hoping that either A, they're going to change their opinions or their thought process on the whole only releasing it for a specific amount of time. And if they do not change that thought process, then my only other wish is that what they'll eventually do is they'll bring it out again on the tail end somewhere. You know, right before they change to a new console, they'll come out with another release of these games. I'm sure.
I'll be 100% honest. If they refuse and they do not relent, I will not buy the game. I refuse to support this kind of blatant. I'm not even going to call it malpractice or anything. It's just them being your standard asshole corporation trying to make more money.
I agree. I agree.
It's an anti-consumer practice, and I don't even get me started on those again. I don't want to go on a whole other hour-long rant about. Okay, so quick update on the amiibo thing before we get too far from that.
You're good.
Looks like your average amiibo is anywhere from like $14 to $16. But listen to this. This perfectly ties up with the what do they call it? Not false scarcity, artificial scarcity.
Yeah.
The Marth amiibo, the American edition of it, which came out back when Smash 4 was a thing. On sale on eBay right now for $10,000.
That's just gross.
And literally, I'm reading the description. And it's like, well, please read this description because you will only get a single Marth amiibo figure. This is an extremely rare amiibo, and they only made so many issues. God damn. And you know this wasn't a mistake. Nintendo knew what they were doing.
Oh yeah. 100%. They were very aware of what they were doing. They were purposefully in this situation. They were again creating a form of artificial scarcity to essentially drum up profits because you know that there are Nintendo licensed sellers who aren't publicly licensed. I'm sure they're probably not publicly known, but Nintendo is in some way, shape, or form creating this drummed up price gouging because of how rare they are, and they are in some way, shape, or form benefiting from it.
And I remember it was The Legend of Zelda 2, which I remember when that came. Well, I wasn't alive when it came out, first off, but I remember reading that when it came out, they sent so few copies to America that people were driving 100 miles checking every store trying to find a copy for Christmas.
That doesn't surprise me.
And I remember they later said it had something to do with a shortage of computer chips to make the games. But I've also read multiple stories saying that that's outright bullshit, and they had enough chips, they just chose not to make more copies.
Which doesn't surprise me. I mean, if you think about it, it's the same thing that they've been doing. They do now, is they're trying to make it seem like they're, in higher demand that they are, and that in of itself drives up the amount of demand that there is, and before you know it, they're they're selling billions of copies of the same game, and we're all sitting here looking like chumps.
And the craziest thing is, nowadays they have no excuse. There's
Right.
no excuse not to just put it on your digital store and have it stay there for until the end of time, basically.
I mean, it doesn't. There's literally, I mean, without, for lack of a better phrase, there's no negative side to doing that. I mean, it can only bring them more money
Exactly.
because. But this also makes me think: is Nintendo in such a tight spot that they need a huge, surge of sales to stay afloat or something? Like,
Well, I mean,
what's
it's super easy money. They literally just took the game files, compiled them all into a single cartridge, and they're gonna make bank from shit that's already been made.
which in of itself is already crazy because we never in a million years would we think that this is what was going to make the most money. You know what I mean? Like back
Exactly.
when back when we were kids, we weren't thinking, oh, they can maybe remake this game one day. No, we were just thinking of the now, and now we're thinking, oh, they've remade this game and they're going to probably do it again in the future. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, back in the day, it was like, man, wonder when they're gonna put out Mario 65.
Right. And
Now
then
it's like, God, when are they gonna re-release Mario 64?
exactly. Oh man. So and,
I imagine. Sorry, not to
no good.
interrupt, but imagine if they made The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild only available for like a 6 month span. Would you
Which
not be furious?
Oh, I would too, because I mean, during, like you said, Breath of the Wild 2, right?
Shit, even the first one.
Well, I was gonna say when I bought the first one, I bought it like, but here's the thing, I don't think they would do it on a new release title. I
Oh
don't
no,
because
because they know better. They know they'll
they
get called out for that.
oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. They feel comfortable doing it for a re-release title or for a not a lesser known title, but you understand what I'm saying. It's a
Yeah,
re-release. You know what I mean? You could they can comfortably do a limited release on it without much backlash. But if they do that for like a new title, like a AAA title, like a big new Legend of Zelda title, dude, they would get their asses reamed quicker than you could say, "Holy shit!" Like, oh my god.
and not to mention, there's been so much news about. Apparently, people are complaining that one, the game does not come with Super Mario Galaxy 2. It only comes with Super Mario Galaxy 1, which is kind of a it's still a good deal. You're getting Super Mario Galaxy for basically $20, so I'm not going
Right.
to complain too much. But some people pointed out the version of the Mario 64 they showed is one of the newer ones, which basically is patched to cut out a bunch of the speedrunning glitches.
Really.
So people are like, come on, we know there's enough room on the cartridge. You could just give us the original version or both versions. Hell, by all rights, you should be giving us Mario 64 and Super Mario 64 DS.
That's what I was gonna say. I've seen a lot of people complaining that they didn't include the DS version because a lot of people like the DS version. I like the DS version. It added another layer to a game that I already love. So, I mean, why
I'm
not?
yeah, say it's literally just Super Mario 64, but multiplayer, and there's a couple more levels.
Exactly. And I mean, that would be a perfect because you could probably turn that into like a party game too. So I mean, that's even to add a little bit more to your your repertoire when it comes to these games. And like I said, I would purchase that in a heartbeat.
Oh man, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait and see if they eventually kind of say, okay, you know what, we will release it permanently. We won't put an artificial timer on this. If they say that, I'm down to clown. No joke.
I am down to clown, he says. No joke. Anyway,
No
so
cap.
no cap. So I guess we should probably move on to our next topic. So we want to go a little nostalgic, and I specifically want to go a little nostalgic for one of my favorite game series of all time, and one of Salsa's favorite game series of all time as well. I'm gonna want to go a little nostalgic for Resident Evil. Resident Evil.
Resident Evil.
Honestly, Resident Evil is, in my opinion, I would say it's one of the best survival horror games that has ever existed, if not the
No
best.
doubt. I mean, the only competitor I can think of is Silent Hill. And there is a myriad of issues with Silent Hill right now.
Oh, 100%. That's a whole nother conversation, with Konami, but Resident
We're
Evil,
saving that for a later date.
that's a whole that's a whole podcast episode in of itself. But one of the things that that me and Salsa both loved about Resident Evil, and we even talked about this on our first episode, how Resident Evil 1 was one of the defining moments of our childhood because to us it was so scary and we couldn't play it because of how scary we thought it was.
It was
but
always the back of that grip. The first zombie, when you walk into the hallway in front of the fireplace, and he turns around and he has all those cracks in his head where his skin's split open and his mouth is all covered with gooey bits, and God, that was horrifying as a kid.
It really was, and there were other parts too, like when you first meet the snake. I can't remember what the snake's name is, but
I want to say his name was Jan.
I think you're right. It was something like that. But I remember
I have Google right here. I don't know why I don't just Google this.
Fair.
Snake not 32. RE1. Jan. I don't know how that makes sense, but sure.
Well, but, and it's like, and that was the first one, and that was the first one I feel like that we really saw get played. But the first one that I played was, I remember I played Resident Evil 2 for the PlayStation 1.
I think the first time I played it was Resident Evil 2 on the Nintendo 64, funny enough.
I think yours was the PlayStation 1 as well, because remember we went to we have a person that we have a mutual common that we would visit as kids. It was Art's house. Do you remember Art?
Oh yeah, Art Fart.
Yeah, he was a friend of our parents, and
I like that we have to keep this very hush hush. Like we don't talk about each other's childhoods. We don't talk about real names. We got to use codes.
Right. Well, the guy's name was Art. But no, yeah, he was a mutual friend of members of our family, and so we actually went over to his house because I think, if I'm not mistaken, somebody was staying there with him that we knew. But regardless, we would go over there and we played his PlayStation, and I remember he always got mad because we put the games up in the wrong cases.
We were kids. What does he want?
Right, does he want us to have like super organization skills or some shit? Nah.
Yeah, I would alphabetize this shit if I knew the alphabet.
Right. I mean, we were young. We were like 7, 8 probably.
Shit if I know.
But
my memory doesn't go back that far.
Same. But irregardless, we were super young. And I remember I played the Leon version first, and then I played the Claire version. But yeah, I mean,
I think the official canon story is Claire side. I want to say Claire side B is the official canon Resident Evil 2 story.
Right, yeah. Leon A, Claire B is the official story because they're the same storyline technically.
I don't know, man.
Because then Claire A, Leon B is the alternate.
Shit if I know. I just remember finding Brad Vickers beneath the stairs, and that being crazy because you didn't know how he got there until the next game.
Right, and so because the way you had to get to Brad Vickers under the stairs was you couldn't use your any items, right? You couldn't use any healing items, and you couldn't shoot anybody. And then when you got to RPD, you would meet him, and then you would kill him, and then he would drop the key.
I don't remember exactly what you had to do. I want to say all you had to do is get to the RPD within a set amount of time, and it only happened on like Claire B or Leon B, and he would be under the stairs, and then you could kill him. And I can't remember what he dropped. I want to say it was the key to, I don't know, a costume or something.
I think it was the key to the locker in the safe room near the stairs.
Yeah, the black room. No, red room?
Yeah, it was the red room because that was where you could develop photos.
Yeah, the shit where you do the pictures.
Yeah, and I remembered you could unlock a costume, and the Leon costume was like a greaser costume, and the Claire costume was like
a very kind way to put it. Let's be real. It was the rapper costume. The white beater, the flat billed cap. He would shoot his pistol sideways.
Yeah, that's right.
It was a little inappropriate, but.
And the Claire one, she was like a quick draw kind of person. You had like an unlimited ammo revolver, didn't you?
I don't know if it was unlimited ammo, but it was a revolver, which they brought back in the second game or the remake.
Yeah, I was gonna say in the remake, and if you do the Leon B campaign, you because in both of the Claire and Leon B, you start outside of RPD, and in order to get into RPD, you have to go through a couple of steps first. Like you have to find like the bolt cutters, and the bolt cutters are in that little shed, and in the shed you pick up your new primary firearm, which for Leon was another pistol that he shot sideways.
It was a 1911, but I forget what they call it. I'm pretty sure even that the 1911 they used in Resident Evil 2 Remake is a reskin of the 1911 you get in the Resident Evil 7.
Right. That's I'm pretty sure you're right, because if I'm not mistaken, it has it's almost like an identical skin, if I'm not mistaken, because they run on the same engine.
Yeah, what gives it away was the textured grips. I want to say were a certain color of wood that you can kind of immediately pick up and be like, hey, this looks familiar.
And then Claire shot a revolver, but she shot it down at her hip, and
classic quick draw style they call it.
And like you could slap fire, and it would be like a super fast firing method, which could be helpful. I mean, especially if you get like cornered, just fucking slap fire and pray to God that you can knock down a couple of them.
Yeah, it's a great way to quickly get a zombie off of you. The downside is the fact that the 45 ammo you need for those guns is super rare. You cannot craft it. And worst of all is that they don't do that much damage altogether. So really the pistol was fucking useless.
Because you could, but then the worst part was that you couldn't pick up 9mm ammo either. You could only pick up the 45, but you could craft 9mm.
Which was the dumbest thing. Am I expected to carry 2 pistols because the game's like, nah, you don't know how to craft that ammo?
That's what I was gonna say too. Is that you basically were like, oh hey, I need to carry both pistols. Which once you upgrade your primary pistol enough, it takes up 2 slots, and at least for Leon, it does. I should say, because it turns into the Matilda.
I don't know if the revolver takes up 2 slots, but I do know that Claire's revolver, fully upgraded, you can actually use it as a revolver. Then it takes magnum rounds.
Well, I knew that, but no, I was saying like their primary pistols, like the other one that you would get in the A campaign, because in the A campaign you both carry a 9mm, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, in the A campaign for Claire, originally you carry a revolver. It's not a quick draw, but I know that later in the story you can find I don't know what it is, the name of the gun, maybe a MUP, M-U-P?
Let me look here.
It's in the police car, I want to say, in the garage. No, it's not the Mupp. It's like I forget the name of it, but I know that you can upgrade it with a laser sight and maybe I don't know, something else.
So Leon starts with the Matilda.
Which is a horrible gun, by the way.
Yeah.
I would rather dick down the zombie.
And then in the second story, you get the M19 handgun, which
Is a 1911.
yeah, it's essentially a 1911. And then let's go to Claire. Man, there's no quick links for me to get to Claire. I gotta scroll. What the fuck?
Using the fan wiki.
No, it's IGN.
Oh, fuck IGN.
I'll say for her, she starts out. Oh, there we go. Okay.
It's a 5-shot revolver, I believe.
It's a SLS 60 handgun. It is 9mm. Yeah, it's because it comes. You can get a speed reloader.
Yeah.
So that inherently implies that it is a revolver because the only reason you would need to have a speed reloader is if it's a revolver.
And it is unique in that sense that it's a 9mm revolver. So already it's worse than the Matilda, which is
Right.
kind of impressive considering how shitty the Matilda is until you fully upgrade it.
And then you actually can get another handgun. It's the JMB HP3 handgun,
That's
which
it.
it's like it's a more standard handgun than the SLS. They both share the same ammo type, but the JMB, while the JMB may not have a high rate of fire, it can interchange ammo later on. So you can use like the reinforced ammo or whatever it is.
The JMB, I want to say that is based on the Browning High Power, which is the spiritual successor of the 1911 in the real world.
Right.
And you can even use it in other Resident Evil games. Particularly, it was very prominent in Operation Raccoon City as one of the intermediate level handguns.
I gotcha. And then, like we said, the other weapon is the quick draw army handgun, which is just a fucking revolver that you slap shot, which isn't bad. The issue that you have with that gun specifically is just the slow firing. It's not slow firing. It's a weak. Generally, it's weak. The 45 ammo is a little bit stronger than 9mm, obviously, as it is in real life. It's just, yeah.
And this is a fun fact about the quick draw. When you fire it from the hip. And in most games, they would not change the exit location of the bullet. But in Resident Evil, they do. Which means when you aim from the hip, it is harder to hit headshots on close zombies. Because the laser is physically coming from the end of that gun. So that was a huge flaw with the gun is you cannot hit headshots at close range. Not that they're that useful anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna say don't get me wrong, like I love Resident Evil 2 remake, but the zombies are fucking bullet sponges. Like, insane bullet sponges. But
I got in the habit of instead of aiming for headshots and hoping for a kill, I would dismember zombies, which is kind of morbid that I spent so much time slowly hacking off their arms and legs. But it's the only way to guarantee that they will not come back.
That's what I was gonna say is, you can down a zombie by blowing their legs off. They're not gonna die, but when you come back to that room, they're gonna still be crawling.
And Lord knows the last thing you need when you're running from Mr. X is to get grabbed by some dumbass on the floor.
Right. So kind of to move on just a little bit because we don't have too much of the time left here. We kind of want to talk about Resident Evil because there are two pretty big projects coming up within the Resident Evil universe. The next Resident Evil game that we're going to see is going to be Resident Evil 8, which is which we're not really sure what it's going to be about. I mean, from the trailer, it kind of looks like werewolves. Speaking of dogs.
Yeah, that's... Just ignore that.
But, you know, in it Resident Evil 8, it looks good. It looks scary, that's for sure. But a lot of people... Or go ahead.
I will say, Chris in the trailer is looking a little chunky. Like, he's really let himself go.
I mean, or go ahead.
I was going to say, which I know is ironic coming from me, but...
Yeah, I was going to say, who are you to call Chris Redfield chunky? Okay. But you know, and a lot of... And I think the major consensus is that this game is obviously a direct follow-up to Resident Evil 7. And in Resident Evil 7, if you play through the story mode and you play through the extra campaign, the Not a Hero campaign, you learn that Chris goes in to find the son, which I can't remember the son's name off the top of my head.
There's Jack Baker, Marguerite Baker, Zoe Baker, and the son.
Yeah, I would say... let's see. Resident Evil 7... Baker family.
What was his name? Joey? Baxter.
No, that's definitely not it.
Harold?
No, stop. Lucas. It's
Well,
Lucas Baker. Yeah. So in the Not a Hero campaign, you go in, you face off with Lucas Baker after he mutates, and you find that he was trying to transmit information about the basically the virus that was infecting Evelyn and the other Bakers. Basically, you stop the transmission because you don't know who it's going to, what their intentions are, and so on and so forth. So basically, a lot of people think that this is going to be a direct follow-up. Essentially, it's going to be Chris trying to figure out who Lucas was trying to send that information to.
I mean, also mention that in the trailer, Chris straight up just guns down Mia.
Yeah, which leads me to think that there might be some concerns because she was directly infected in the 7 game, and I'm assuming...
True, but so was Face.
But I don't think you were infected, were you? You were...
No, you were infected. You had to take a... I'm pretty sure was infected. Because remember, you start seeing the hallucinations, which only happens when you're infected.
So I think you're right. I think in Resident Evil 7, you do get infected. So I'm assuming that you're also going to die. Like your character, I can't remember, Ethan. So I'm assuming Ethan's going to die as well in Resident Evil 8 because, like you said, we kind of see, Mia get just fucking murked, and first thing in the trailer almost. But you are in like in a village somewhere because it's called Resident Evil 8: The Village, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you're probably going to be in some village. I'm assuming like in a European-esque area.
Yeah, they've already shown and basically said it'll take place in a European village, very similar to Resident Evil 4.
Right.
And
obviously, Resident Evil 4 is more Northern Europe, Spain type deal. But
I'll be honest, geography was not my strong suit. So,
but it almost seems like Germanic in a way, like based on the trailer that is. So
really, because to me it seemed more like Romanian kind of.
Well, and that's what I was gonna.
I don't want to say the G word, What is there? politically correct word now for the Romani.
Oh, you were gonna. I understand what you're gonna say. No, so yeah, you're like Slavic, like
Kind of, yeah.
because it almost seems like not vampiric, but like Transylvanian esque. Right? I know what you're saying. Like it was like that really high castle kind of, gothic in a way.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it almost seems like that they're trying to play it off like that there are like witches or something. Because there are those three. There's like I think there's a scene where it's like a few women that are like huddled around like a circle or like a seance or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
They're really playing hard into the werewolves and paranormal aspect. But at the
but
end of
I'm
the day, it's all just going to be another virus. We know.
right. That's what I was gonna say. But which is interesting though. It is different, which I'm happy that they're going with because for people who may not know, and obviously me and Salsa know this because we're both really big fans of Resident Evil. Before Resident Evil was made, they actually had a different concept for Resident Evil, and it was called Resident Evil 3.5. Um, you can actually find Resident Evil 3.5, like a demo of it,
You're talking
and
about a pre-Resident Evil 4.
right. It was Leon, but it was more of a supernatural horror than it was like an actual survival zombie or what Resident Evil 4 was. But you
Yeah.
can actually look at it, and there are a lot of similarities between what Resident Evil 3.5 was and what Resident Evil 4 was. But for a very long time, because even before that, there was always rumors that the next step for Resident Evil was going to be a more supernatural twist on the genre. So I think it's finally happening, but they're finding a way to do it that's tasteful and makes sense.
And it is important to remember that this will not be the first time that there's been a virus that turns people into animals, basically.
Right. Because because obviously you have the virus that changes liquors because liquors are humans, right?
I believe so, but
And
I
they're
was referring more to there was a Resident Evil comic book which kind of shows Leon going on a secret mission and he ends up fighting these people who have been turned into giant bats.
oh yeah, I gotcha.
Like, if you look at the comic book, they're straight up just bats. Not even like hybrids, they're just giant bats.
Which kind of plays into what we're looking at now, which is what it seems like is you know werewolves. That's what it looks like.
I believe the medical term is lycanthropy.
Right. So like a bipod canine type deal. But
I mean, yes, but what I mean is lycanthropy is the medical term for uh, turning into a werewolf. In the real world, the only people diagnosed with lycanthropy are usually having like a mental break and believe they're turning into werewolves.
I gotcha.
But there's even some version of lycanthropy where you don't believe you're turning into an animal, but instead you believe the people around you are turning into animals. And it's really weird.
I mean, it doesn't surprise me. But and so I think Resident Evil 8 is going to be good. I think it'll be another step in the right direction that Resident Evil 7 took. It'll be kind of going back to the horror roots in a way. Resident Evil 7 was an excellent game. Me and Salsa both loved that game. Salsa thinks it was super scary. I thought it was super scary.
Oh, I don't do well with scary games, to be honest.
You're like, I love Resident Evil, and you're like, and like honestly, like the old games, they're not scary anymore because like we've played them so much, and you know, also the having the graphics be so low res in a way kind of reduces the modern horror take on it. But geez, like Resident Evil 7 was a whole nother ball game.
Like, I will be 100% honest. Resident Evil 2 Remake. I have yet to play through all the little DLC missions, like
Really?
Last Survivor and all that, because honestly, when I tried them, it's so stressful. because I'm always on edge, walking around the corners expecting new zombies to attack me, and it's so dark, and I hate that. It's like I feels like I'm on a timer.
Yeah.
It's genuinely anxiety inducing,
Yeah,
but
it
I
really
love
is.
Resident Evil.
And that's honestly how I felt when I played both the remakes. I was like, Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 3, like the first time you play it, like you're trying to anticipate what's going to happen because we've played the old games, but they always change just enough so that way you cannot anticipate it.
Honestly, Resident Evil 2 remake, yeah, they changed it just enough that you still have an idea of what's happening, but to the point that you have no idea when. Like Mr. X, in the old games, he would just follow you down a hallway, you escape out and door, you're good to go. Now,
Now,
he will follow you to the gates of hell just because you looked at him funny.
you don't even have to look at him funny. You think about it, even for a microcosm. He literally is like, I'm coming. I'm coming for you.
Like, I remember watching a really good video about the inner workings of Mr. X, how literally, even though you can't see him, instead of just despawning him and having him randomly appear, he still searches the area. He just doesn't use his walking animation. He'll glide along the floor looking for you.
Yep. Well, and like, and like for instance, like when you're playing that game, you'll be in a room, let's say, and he'll be walking around and you can hear him walking around. Like
And
there are times where he's like above you or maybe he's next door to you.
and a lot of people when they first played it just assumed what it was is if player enters this room, play sounds walking next door .exe or whatever, as to make you think he's looking for you.
No, he's actually looking for you.
Like literally a majority of his programming is non-scripted. He just follows you. Like I remember there's a scene where he can literally bust down a wall, which isn't scripted technically, but once you because you can trigger at any time if he's following you down the stairs to this area, but it will trigger no matter what at a certain point in the game.
Right.
And that's about as far as his standard triggered events go.
Which
And
is honestly is hilarious because it's just super intuitive and that's the Resident Evil that we've gotten up until this point is not nearly as intuitive.
and not to mention, he actually follows the sound of your like if you run and he's nearby, he can hear that. If you fire a gun from across the police station, he hears that. He tracks you down based on sound.
Right.
That is
Which
horrifying.
it really is. It's absolutely horrifying. Oh man. So I think that's where we're gonna end it, with our conversation on Resident Evil. Um, next time what we'll probably do is we'll probably start with a recap on Resident Evil 8. And we have a couple other things we want to talk about. Specifically, we want to talk about the Resident Evil 4 remake, which we believe to be in the pipeline. As well as some ideas. We've talked about, me and Salsa and just between us, we've always kind of talked about like, oh, what should they remake next and everything else. So, yeah, we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about, we're also going to critique Resident Evil 3 and Resistance, which we're not going to get started on that because both of those were honestly somewhat train wrecks.
To be fair, it's critique Resident Evil 3 and then just have a shit fest over Resistance because I've got a lot of complaints to air out.
I feel you. I feel you. And it just wasn't worth the money. Honestly, if I could go back and they're like, hey, because when you buy Resident Evil 3, you got Resistance. If I could have paid less money and just got Resident Evil 3, I would have.
Yeah, let's be real. Resistance was a $30 game they tacked on to another $30 game, and we had to pay the full price to get both. I did not
Exactly.
want. Like, goddamn, guys.
Yeah, I didn't want it either. But I think that's what we'll leave it for now, just so that we don't continue to drag on for too long. But for everybody out there who is listening, go ahead and give the channel a like, a subscribe, comment down below about anything you guys want us to talk about. and me and Salsa will talk about it in a future episode. Follow us on Twitter. You can follow the show at Geek-Stew, or I'm sorry, it's at Try the Stew, or you can go to Facebook. We have Facebook, just like your 75-year-old grandmother does. You can go to facebook.com/Try the Stew, or you can just search Geek-Stew and we should come up. You can follow Salsa on Twitter. He's got a lot of insight on whatever you want, I guess. He is at red_the_writer, and I am at pint-sized-beast on Twitter. But yeah, any parting words for our kind audience?
I will only say, following me on Twitter is the best thing you will ever do. Listen to these golden ass tweets I've made. Quote, my Xbox playlist looking like a time machine, Resident Evil 2 and 3, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, Assassin's Creed 2. Maybe I'm just reliving my nostalgic past in a futile effort to distract myself from the abhorrent present and the unknowable future. JK, might play Halo 2 later, I don't know.
Oh, that sounds like a cry for help for me, but that's fine.
A lot of these really are cries of help, like this one on September 4th. Lamau, how dudes really shit themselves, just don't. And then 7 minutes later, never mind.
No, Logan or Salsa made an oopsie, but anyways, but if you would like to follow him, but I will not condone that because he's somewhat terrifying. But on that note, everybody who's listening, go ahead and be kind to one another. Stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy, and keep on growing.
Do unto others as you would do unto yourself.